everybody, how are you doing? SJ Anderson here with you live to talk about the astrology of February 2026, a major month, a big month, a huge month in our world, very likely. And I want to dive in here. As I was getting ready for this, I was just in this software. It's got like an interface where I can see comments as they're coming in, and just coming out with a couple of comments I was reading and chuckling. They got me laughing. This one says here, I'm starting with the comments. At the end, we'll do some comments as I've been normally doing. But the first one here, SJ, what if nothing happens? And I think this is in response to the title of this video, the month that everything changes, or something like that. And I usually don't do hyperbolic titles. I try to avoid that, as much as I can, because I don't want to participate in that style of titling YouTube videos. And I did it this a month for a reason, because, and I'm going to get into that here, but let me throw the other comment up here. This is, hey, nothing ever happens, from another person. So the idea here, and the reason why everything changes this month, is because when you look at astrology, there is different ways that we examine reality, right? There's the astrological symbolic layer, and that's the layer of the measurements of the heavens. That is the huge component of what we do in astrology, is that we just make measurements of the movements of the planets. And then we've abstracted these 12, 30-degree segments. And then we have whole systems of meaning that we derive from those measurements, the symbolic meaning that then is derived at that layer of the measurement, and then more symbolic layer is what I call it. And definitely in that layer, everything changes this month. And so it fits, setting aside what emerges in the world, guys. Barely hear me, you can barely hear me. Okay, let me check this out. Let me see, very quiet. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Let me try to turn this up. You may want to, here we go. Let me see, this is why, Can you hear me now? Is this better? Is this better here? I think this is going to be better. I put my other mic on. How is this one, guys? The volume quiet, or is the volume problematic? And sorry about that. Geez, I hate to have that coming out of the gate here as a problem. And if it's going to continue to be an issue, we'll have to yes, much better. Okay, let me start over, guys. Look, if you've already watched a little bit of this, we're going to reset here, and I'm going to go back to the beginning. Quickly, I was saying how, as I was preparing for this, and as I was putting this on, I was laughing because these comments came in before I went live. SJ, what if nothing happens? And then a response, nothing ever happens. And it got me laughing because, one, I kind of agree with the sentiment in some sense, that astrologers tend to be hyperbolic, and sometimes we can hype things up, and a lot of times things don't quite happen in the same way that these astrologers make predictions like this is the greatest year, the greatest month, or the greatest full moon, or whatever. So I'm laughing because I'm like, I understand it and I get it. And then I was going into an analysis of why I chose the title for this video, The Month That Everything Changes, because it's true that on the symbolic layer of reality, and this is the distinction I want to make with everybody, at least in terms of how I think about astrology, is that we have the measurements of the bodies, and that's astronomy. That's what astronomers do. We get telescopes, we measure the bodies. We then have ways that we measure. So the 12 division of the ecliptic into 30-degree segments, that's actually astronomy. Those are astronomers who developed that in Babylon as a timing system for the months of the year. And then we project the positions of the planets and stars onto that ecliptical line, and then we have this degree system, this 360-degree system, trigonometry, spherical trigonometry. So there's the measurement system. Then we also have the way that we assign symbolic meaning to the measurements as they change, and that's also abstract. That's not my life. Just because Saturn is going to enter a fire sign this month on the 14th of February, that's not my life. What does that mean for me? We know that at the level of what the fire element is and what Saturn is symbolically, we can create meaning around that, but that's also an abstraction. That's not my life. And then, of course, we have my life or the world around us, and that's what these comments are about. What if nothing happens? And all I can say is that at the symbolic layer and at the measurement layer, everything changes this month. There's no doubt about that, which is why I felt comfortable putting that title here, because it is true. Everything will change at the level of measurement and symbol. Now, what that means for our world, we just have to see. We have to live through it like we always have to do. And the other thing I was going to think about here with these comments that had me laughing was there's a scene in the film Adaptation. This film came out, I think, 2001, maybe 2002. It's a film written by Charlie Kaufman, He wrote Being John Malkovich. There's very innovative filmmaker, but Nicolas Cage plays twins. I've been thinking about the movie a lot for some other things, but maybe I'll relate that to Venus and Pisces, which is a major theme here this month, because there's some beautiful scenes in that movie about love. But I want to come back to this scene where Robert McKee, the famous screenwriter, theorist, and he's a writer about screenwriting. Robert McKee, he's played by the guy in Succession. I forgot the actor's name off the top of my head. The father, the patriarch in Succession. That actor plays screenwriter Robert McKee, and the Nicolas Cage character stands up and says, "Why do we have in screenplays the need for drama? Because nothing happens in life." And Robert McKee just goes off. It's a legendary scene. You've probably seen clips of it in short form video content on social media. But he's like, "What do you mean nothing happens in life? Every day people die, people are born, people get broken up with, people fall in love." And so I just challenge the notion that nothing ever happens. I mean, everything's happening at all times. And even and big things happen in people's lives all the time. I mean, huge events. Getting fired from a job, getting a new job, people dying, people we love leaving us, all of it. And so I just think that there will be a lot probably happening this month for people, probably a lot already happening. I mean, that's the reality. We're already in the eclipse season with the sun in Aquarius, where the sun will be eclipsed. Brian Cox is the actor. Thank you very much for that. Yes, Brian Cox, one of his legendary performances, I'd say, before Succession, was as him playing Robert McKee in the film adaptation. But a lot's happening and always happening. And so I just encourage everyone, and this is how I practice astrology, is that we have to analyze the measurement and symbolic layer. We stay abreast of that and the changes in that layer so that we can confirm the events in our lives. We can kind of get ahead of the events in our lives. People say we think about it like a weather report. It's just good to know, hey, the weather's shifting. This is how it may be shifting in my life. And then we just feel into it. And then we live life as it comes. And no one's in control of that. I'm certainly not. So anyhow, thanks for those kind of jocular comments here out of the gate, because it's almost like an asterisk that all astrologers should have almost every video. Like, we don't really know what's going to happen. We're analyzing the layer of symbolism. We've got cycle work. We've got a lot that can go into this. Oftentimes it is right. And I won't go, there's some classic examples in my own practice where it's like, dang, that's so correct. I'll just say it here without going through it all, but the North Node in Cancer triggered the COVID crisis, and that has always triggered crisis, always, literally every time it happens. The biggest crises in the 20th century were always triggered by that transit. And I had a pinned tweet on Twitter for like years before that. I was like, okay, what's going to happen this time? And then it happened, the COVID crisis. So we actually can sometimes get out ahead by analyzing the measurement and the change in the symbol and the historical cycles, and we do actually predict things or kind of get out ahead of events, even though it's not exactly the same. It never is. All right. So, okay, that aside, a little bit of a segue here and a kind of distraction before we get into February 2026's astrology, but always good to set up. All right. Always good to set up with a question like that. Okay. You can see here the first graphic I have is the Mercury retrograde cycle for this winter and spring in the Northern Hemisphere 2026. And it's a huge thing to be aware of in February 2026. That Mercury enters Pisces on the 6th of February. It stations retrograde on the 26th of February. It stations direct on the 20th of March. And that's all in Pisces, mind you. It's a full retrograde in Pisces. And then it will leave Pisces finally on the 15th of April. And this is context that we're going to get into all the Saturn, Neptune, and all the big stuff everybody wants to talk about, right? But I lead with this, one, because temporally it's the first big thing that happens in my view. One, and two, I think this is going to be underappreciated in the discourse because of how big the events are that is not this, right? But Mercury retrogrades are potent. They're always powerful and potent, and they can always trigger things. I think this one will be even more interesting potentially because of all the changes that are happening before it begins. The fact that it's in the middle of eclipse season, that can sometimes heighten or magnify astrological events. The second eclipse this eclipse season is ruled by Mercury. The first eclipse is ruled by Mercury. The Aquarius eclipse by what we call triplicity. And even some 20th century modern astrologers said that Aquarius was the exaltation, sign of exaltation for Mercury. People dispute that, but it's something called triplicity rulership in ancient form that Mercury is said to rule Aquarius. So Mercury is ruling both eclipses. as it's in this retrograde cycle, and for the second one, it will be retrograde. So I think it amplifies this Mercury retrograde. Functionally, what can it mean? We're just settling in for maybe blocks and delays. That's just my favorite phrase. And anytime you have a Mercury retrograde, you have to kind of plan around it. Don't try to do too much. Just take a step back. Let it renew the area of your chart that it's retrograding in this case, the Pisces sector. And that's the context for this whole month, that we're kind of slowing down as we get into February. By the end of the month, we're really in a pause and a delay energy. And I think it matches the mental frames that I always recommend for people to take into eclipse season, which is to kind of turn life down. This comes from Vedic, spiritual, astrological traditions, where you're praying and meditating and mantra and just really going inward, because the idea is the veil is thin with eclipse season. It's a thinning of the veil. And so that's all here present this month with, the Mercury retrograde happening, but the eclipse season also happening. The theme of being turn inward, wait, and pause, and just kind of brace for impact, you might say. And I do want to say that I think there's a couple more layers to this, so stay with me. And I will try to move fast. We could just talk about this for another 10 minutes, but where did Neptune leave? Where did Saturn leave? So Neptune left on 26 January. Saturn will leave this month on 14 February. They both left Pisces. But yet we're going to have a Mercury retrograde fully in Pisces just after they've both left. And what that tells me is that we aren't going to really get clear fully of the Piscean dance this year until that April moment. And you have this major event in the middle of April, which is Mercury enters, and then there's a new moon a couple of days later. And this is the event Stephen Judd's been talking about as the major 7 planets in Aries he's never seen ever before. That all happens in April. So I guess what I'm saying here is that as much as this month is a big change, and as much as there's a lot of new stuff this month, April is really when this may flower into fully saying, yeah, wow, this world is brand new, all right? And so maybe my title of my video is a little misleading in the sense that a main theme of this month is April is when we're really in these new worlds. We have a little bit of a delay period, actually, and we're not done with Pisces until the summer, really, when there's the final eclipse in Pisces in August. We're not done with Pisces locally until this 15th April date, when all planets are out of Pisces, save for the North Lunar Node, which isn't a planet, and then we have that final eclipse. So just keep it in mind. If you're expecting this month to be done with your Pisces dance of Saturn and you're celebrating Neptune being gone, yeah, that's all going to be done. But there's a lag, there's a laggard energy to fully process that, and I kind of love it. Because I love that Mercury retrograde is going to allow us to ask ourselves, are we really done with this Pisces dance of Saturn being there since March 2023? Are we really finally done? We get Mercury to kind of help us go back over, dot the I's, cross the T's of that journey we've been on to lay the new foundations with Saturn and Pisces. So, okay, let me keep going here. And I think what I want to do now is just pull the first card. Let's get the tarot reading started, and let's pull this first card and just kind of see what the tarot is going to be telling us around these themes this month. And let me just add this to the stage and then get the cards here. We can maybe say a little invocation. Universe, show us, guide us, give us some direction on this month's big astrology. What do we need to learn and what do we need to know? All right, I've got the cards. Let me throw the first one up here. And some of you have been following these live streams. I've just been pulling tarot cards just to help. I love the tarot, and I love how it can bring us into some new information that maybe we didn't force with our logic brains. This allows us to be open to other forms of analysis. Here's the cups, the 3 of Cups. Lovely, lovely, lovely card. This is the middle degrees of Cancer, which are highly relevant this month because Jupiter enters the degree of its direct station on the 15th of February, or will enter 15 degrees of Cancer, which is exactly what this card is pointing us to. And I'm really glad to see this card right out of the gate here, because one theme of this month, and I'm going to save a big launch into explanation around it, but it's simply the opportunity of Jupiter in Cancer and how that is about home and hearth and celebration and the emotive connection that we can have with people that we love. So let's save the real big breakdown there, but only to acknowledge, hey, tarot, thank you. You're keying us into a major theme of the emotional journeys we've been on of Jupiter in Cancer since last year, 9 June. It entered Cancer 2025. All fall, we had grand water trines with many planets in Scorpio, a full Mercury retrograde, partially in Scorpio. We had Saturn in Pisces, and we had those series of grand water trines. So I think a lot of the last few months have been about working with our emotional bodies. And I hope this month, as Saturn leaves Pisces, you are able to work with that emotional breakthrough that you've had, all of the maybe inner work you got to do those last few months of 2025. You get to kind of celebrate, hey, you're stronger now. You've got more clarity and more emotional centering. And especially in a time when there's volatility geopolitically and with the news cycles, I think this is saying, hey, we've got emotional fortitude and grounded kind of health and healing around our emotional bodies, and maybe people that we're close with and connected to that love us and that we love that are going to help us this month. All right. So okay, let's keep going. Let's show up here with the next slide, and this is the next big moment of 2026 February that I wanted to highlight. This is the moment that Venus enters Pisces, and you can see how these are maybe not the things a lot of people want to be talking about, but I assure you, the idea of benefic emotional embodiment is a huge part of this month. And I love that Venus is in Pisces, where it's exalted. Venus will be, giving us the opportunity to be creative, to be dreamlike in terms of the empowered version of that, where you maybe, like I said before, the veil is thin during eclipse season. And now you have Venus allowing us to make art or celebrate the beauty of having reality being a little bit tenuous. It's not going to be quite what we think it is, right, with the Piscean. And so I think getting lost in the surreality of it all and in the dreamscape of it all is a beautiful way to be during this eclipse season. And I would encourage you, if you're a painter, a writer, or an artist, get that facility going here. And Piscean creativity is different than, you might say, Taurus. Taurus is maybe more practical. You're into what are you making. Piscean creativity is more of like releasing the inner realms and staying connected to unseen realms, staying connected to spiritual realms even as a way to create. And it's very nebulous, and it's almost even hard to talk about how you would embrace Piscean creativity. But I think you know it when you feel it. Just go watch that David Lynch documentary about the art life. I think it was it was called, and he just talks about how these movies came to him. And not only David Lynch, I mean, plenty of creative people describe the mystery of it all and how it's a kind of strange and weird thing. That begins on the 10th of February, and this happens before Saturn enters Aries. This happens before the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. This happens and will be there during both eclipses, like I said, and during this other big breakthrough astrology. So that is a major thing to keep on the radar. And let's keep going. So, I'm not going to go off on all of these slides with long conversations. We're going to return back to this. Oh, and it leaves on the 6th of March. I don't have it here, but you get that for the final 18 days of February and the first 6 days of March, that Venus and Pisces power, which is a lovely, lovely opportunity this month, as I've just shared. So, okay, let's keep going. Next slide. This is the ingress of Saturn on the 14th of February. We're about mid-month now in this little dance here of a little bit of a preview or a preparation for this month. 14th February 2026, Saturn re-enters Aries. And I think that's important to remember. In fact, it's essential. This isn't so new in the sense that it's brand new, right? And another reason why my title might be misleading. Thanks, guys, for setting the tone with those early comments. But we've already been through this. We've already been through Saturn in Aries. We've already been through Neptune in Aries. We had 3 months last summer when those new worlds emerged. And I can't underscore enough how important it would be to go back to your summer, June, July, August. What was your first round experience of Saturn in Aries like? Because I guarantee you there are seeds, or it's encoded in those months, a lot of what will arrive for you here on the 14th of February and until April 2028, 13th April 2028, when Saturn finally leaves Aries. So you probably already have a good sense of what the context is of this transit for you, the new foundations that Saturn will lay, because you have to take the area seriously and work through some obstacles to get a gift by the time it's over. That's like a short summary of how I like to think about Saturn. How would you do this? Well, you have a chart, you have Aries, you have a house that's assigned to Aries in the whole sign house system. The degrees of Aries comprise a sector of your chart. Those topics are in play now to get back on the horse of working directly with those topics in a serious, dignified, and kind of heavy manner. So that's a huge way into feeling into this pocket of time in February 2026. Go back to the summer and then use your chart and the house topics of the Aries sector to feel into what this is pulling you into. 2, we can just come to the archetypal layer. Saturn is conservative things. It's old guard. It's things that take time. It's edifices that have been built over centuries, right? What is Aries? Breaking all that. Breaking it. And I think this is why people say, well, Saturn is fallen in Aries and it's weak there. I say, yes, it is. And what an opportunity. What an opportunity. And I think back to on this channel, a lot of the work I've done with Saturn and Aries for really years leading up to this time. You go back to the Futurist Manifesto in 1909 when the artists, the Italian, forgot his name, writing about how technology will allow for new art. They were already ahead of the breakthroughs that can come with technology. Saturn is technology. It's a planet of technology. I've come to understand it as that. Almost the planet of technology, certainly Mercury too. But when you have it in Aries, you're breaking into whole new worlds technologically, right? And you've got, what was it in 97 or 98? Garry Kasparov loses to Deep Blue, a breakthrough in technology that was a preview. Contained in that was this notion of the future. We had this futuristic breakthrough because now we know that when you came to deep, what is the one that Google has, DeepMind, and they can beat any chess person at any time. They beat the Go experts. No one thought it could do that. And so this is what one layer of the symbolism of Saturn and Aries is, which is so exciting, which is that all the stuff we thought was what we were contained in gets cracked open. And this is just Saturn and Aries, just that transit. We're not even talking about Neptune. But this idea of a whole new reality in terms of technological is evoked here just with the Saturn and Aries transit, and I can't underscore it enough. Super exciting, and I'm really pumped to get to live through it. And you're going to see here, I've got 2 news stories in this talk. And one of them is really exciting from this weekend. Some of you probably know what it is with these AI breakthroughs that have just happened. But I think that's what this is very much about, one way or another. So, okay, let me shift out of the Saturn and Aries story. I just want to say, there it is. Like you can see it in this slide. That's why I put this up. 25 May 2025 to 1st September 2025. Go back. What were you dealing with? How does it match the symbols in your chart? All right, let's keep pushing. Let's keep going. I'm adding to the stage here. And now we're getting into this geopolitical story, which I think we have to reckon with. There's no way around it. And let me make it a little bigger. Trump says Iran talking to U.S. and hints at deal to avoid military strikes. That's from today. Ashifa Qassam. I think this is The Guardian. But there's a U.S. naval battle group which is gathering off Iran's shores. A supreme leader in Tehran warns attack would spark regional war, right? And I bring this up because Aries is war, ruled by Mars, Eris in the ancient Greek, god of war. And you can't discount the historical cycles of Saturn and Aries in war. You just can't do it. When Saturn entered Aries in 1937, Guernica happened. The Picasso painting, the massacre in the Spanish Civil War. Guernica. When Saturn was in Aries last summer, that's when all of the stuff around Palestine really went off, where there was, Bet Salam says it's a genocide, right? There was a global discourse around the horrific nature of what had happened in Gaza. That was all Saturn and Aries. It took Saturn coming to Aries for everybody to kind of, the shock and horror of it all. And so as this returns, and we know that Aries is a warlike energy, to have Saturn there, I just do think we have to be aware and watchful, guys, if this is what takes over our world and our reality. And certainly Neptune is already there. And I'm going to get to Saturn and Neptune here in a second, but you know, it's just, as an astrologer, people are like, nothing ever happens earlier in this with those first comments. What, you know, this is happening right now, and it may be something that really gets triggered here greatly this month. And I don't want it to happen. I hope it doesn't happen, but I mean, got armadas right on the coast there, ready to fucking attack. Sorry, excuse me. I hope that ready to attack. I wish. See, these are the kind of things I would edit out. I guess I have to put now. I'm gonna have to code. I dropped an F-bomb. I apologize. But you know, it could be triggered here. I think there's no doubt about that this may be part of what's triggered. All right, so just be aware that's this context as we're on the cusp here in February, but on the cusp of Saturn entering Aries. And actually, I'm going to say this here because now we go to 1989 when you had Khomeini assumes power, Saturn Neptune conjunction in 89. Now and Tiananmen Square. So that was also part of this context because there's these reports of so many innocents being killed by the Iranian government as they were protesting. And what the true number is, I don't know. I think we have to be skeptical on the one hand, but at the same time, it's clear there is some, maybe resonances with like a Tiananmen Square potentially, and that's all matching 89. And then if you go back to 53, of course, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in 53, that's about Iran. Mossadegh, the democratically elected leader, the MI6 sent CIA to take him out for British Petroleum. So, I mean, that was part of the context with the last Saturn-Neptune conjunction in 53, Iran. And so I think I had been talking before this year started, Dan Waits and I, and we had done a podcast on the CAP ISAR channel. And of course, we've been focused on Russia, because this is also a huge part of Saturn, Neptune, no doubt about it. But then Iran was such a big part of it. It was kind of lost on us. But it's clear to me that the nexus of the geopolitics is maybe running through Iran now. And, if there is, this is the thing people are talking about as I sit here today, regional war that's going to take a lot longer. That it might not just be an easy thing where you drop a missile or something and everybody's happy. I mean, if this goes down in a way that it might go down, you're looking at an elongated regional war or special forces, U.S. special forces. Well, what if that doesn't go well? Will there be ground troops, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Some kind of major quagmire that would probably pull in Russia and China at one level. How deep they'll get pulled in, who knows? But look, I'm not a geopolitical guy. Go research, go find the experts, go stay on top of what people are saying about it. As an astrologer, I can tell you it fits the symbolism of Saturn and Aries and of Saturn-Neptune conjoining in Aries and those cycles, and we're right on the cusp of it with major news stories pointing us right to that. And that's pretty much as good as I can do to kind of prepare myself and kind of prepare you guys for it all. So, okay, I'm not going to say much more on it, that particular story, other than to say, here's the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which happens, and I've got this out of order. And actually, I'll put that up. I'll put that up next here. Here's the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. So here's the solar eclipse. Pardon me. Saturn-Neptune conjunction is on the 20th. The solar eclipse happens earlier on the 17th of February. 3 days after Saturn enters, you get the solar eclipse. 3 days after that, you get the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Just to be unambiguous here, guys. And I don't really have much more to say about this other than I think eclipses heighten and accelerate. And so everything I've already talked about in this video, the Mercury retrograde, the Venusian creative opportunities, the fact of Saturn in Aries and all of the symbolism that's baked in there with tech breakthrough and with warlike emergences. And then the Saturn-Neptune conjunction we've talked about a little bit, and I'll say more about that there in a second. But that's all accelerated and heightened greatly by the eclipse being involved exactly in the middle of this dance within days, all right? What are eclipses? I think about them as divine intervention. Hand of God intervenes to rearrange, and you can often see accelerated peaks of intensification. It's with Mars. That's concerning. It's exactly square Uranus and Taurus, which stations direct here. I didn't add that. I decided to not include that in my slide for this month because I knew I'd be talking about it here. But Uranus is stationed direct, I think on the 4th. And this is square Uranus with Mars and Pluto. That does not look easy, does it? That looks kind of volatile, right? And to have this accelerating what had just occurred 3 days before, which is Saturn in this kind of warlike sign where the old conservative structures are now broken down because Saturn is in this sign of youth and power and war. I just think we have to be aware, again, at this symbolic layer. And coming back to you guys in the comments there, what if nothing happens? Well, what if nothing happens? In terms of the big geopolitical stories, that may be true. I do think something probably will happen. Just I've lived through too many of these. We're not talking about here just any eclipse. We're talking about an eclipse with two planets. One is a 165-year cycle and one is a 30-year cycle. Just having changed signs again and conjoining. I mean, it's as rare of astrology as you get. one thing I want to say on it is that the impacts of this stuff don't have to be this day. It's not just like February 17th, oh, nothing happens that day, nothing happens. This stuff can take time, so it can take a few months on either side. I think we're already seeing one phase of it that's already happening now. It's already happening, and that's with the stories we've been looking at. But at the same time, you know, this can last, some people say eclipses last for 6 months. Some people say they last until the next new or full moon that's not an eclipse. And that would put us into the middle of March, after the Virgo lunar eclipse on the 3rd of March. So this isn't like, well, you only have one day to have this have an effect. No, this is a range of time. And so keep that in mind too, as you're saying, well, what did this trigger, or what is happening as a result of this? Okay, so just to say, I mean, this is more of, I'm bringing this up here more as the accelerator, all right, rather than talking about this in regards to, you know, something that's unique here and independent of these other major features of this chart. And I will say, and I've got to say it, I've said it in other videos, but let me say it here again. What is the ruling planet of Aquarius by domicile? In the ancient tradition, Saturn. What is the ruling planet of Aquarius by triplicity? Mercury. And then you could say the other ruling planet is Uranus, if you want to say more modern schools. But I just want to focus on the classical, and that's Saturn, which means that the ruler, and then, you know, go back to Firmicus Maternus, the ancient astrologer. The ruling planet of a sign is the outcome. And so for a different way of saying it, the outcome of this eclipse is this new Saturn power breakdown of the old guard and a new breakthrough. That's the outcome of this eclipse, just using ancient astrological technique of rulership as a delineation model. And so I'm saying it's an accelerator because it's eclipse energy, but then you use rulership and it's even more of an accelerator of these new worlds that are happening. Remember, 3 days before Saturn enters Aries, 3 days after Saturn and Neptune conjoin, in terms of their technical perfected conjunction. All right, I'm not going to say anything more about this chart right now, except to add this to the stage, just to provide some other context. Actually, I'm going to pause. I want us to get the second tarot card. Let's shift back to that and just grab this second card, see what else the tarot is asking us to contemplate here. I love this first one. It's saying basically focus on Venus and Pisces and Jupiter and Cancer. Focus on that this month. That's a beautiful benefic trine. It happens this month in the water element. And Jupiter's exalted and Venus is exalted. So both benefic planets are exalted in the water element pretty much all month, starting the 10th of February on. And I think you can't get a better card to express that. And so, you know, setting aside all this dark war and all of that, those themes, running with that clearly at the level of symbolism is joy and connection and creativity and love and celebration and all of these beautiful themes. So let's see what this middle card is. Let's see how this might fit with what we've been talking about and where this may be wanting to direct us. All right, let me see. This card is going to be the Lizard King again has appeared. The Lizard King has appeared, the King of Wands. And so we're back to that, which in my correspondence system is the zodiac sign Aries, guys. Wow, wow, wow. I'm going to pause. I just want to say this. I haven't been plugging anything on these lives. I keep forgetting to, but I do have a Patreon, SJ Anderson 144 there. The link is in the description. I publish a lot of videos on that Patreon, like 15 a month, depending on the tier. At the lowest tier, I'm publishing like 12 a month, or no, several, like 8 a month, I think. So just know that if you want more of me, go to that Patreon, and there's a lot more. And I'm just more, you know, I'm engaged regularly there. It's an active Patreon. I actively publish. We also have a live stream we do once a month. We're going through chart examples right now of the long studying we've been doing over laying out the basis of my style or system of astrology. Now we're into some chart examples and applying that to natal charts. Last month we looked at Terence McKenna. We looked at the author of Little Women, Louisa May Alcott, and then we looked at Toni Morrison. Next month we're going to look at Mike Tyson. No, not Mike Tyson. O.J. Simpson, and I forgot the others. But just know we're doing really active work. If you're wanting to study, just come over there. And then subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're watching and you're not subscribed, just check down there, subscribe. Why? Because it just helps. It just is another way to help, and it's free, you know, and I thank you for all of that. Okay, so back to the Lizard King. This is Aries. Look at the way he's looking back at the people that are celebrating, enjoy. And I think that's telling us, hey, if this Saturn and Aries moment and Neptune and Aries and their conjunction ruling the eclipse, if that's so destabilizing and it's rocking your world, like it's rocking your kingdom and your little domain of power, in a certain sense, the king is Saturn, right? It's something that has long-lasting, often it's linear, generational, intergenerational. So there's like this Saturn idea of a king, but then in Aries, it's like shaking our throne in some ways. I think definitely in the Aries sector. But I think this reading is saying, hey, you got people that love you, you got joy, you got your inner world, you've got the beauty of just being alive, all of that Piscean, Cancerian celebration that happens in February 2026. And so I think this is a very clear message. It's like, hey, keep your eye on Venus in Pisces and Jupiter in Cancer as a way to ride the gyration of the Aquarius ruled solar, the Aquarius solar eclipse ruled by Saturn and Aries. Okay, let's shift back and that's the middle card. We got one more, we'll close the reading with that. And I want to bring this back to the stage, which is just back to the Aquarius eclipse cycle. And it's another reason why I put as the title of this video, everything changes. Because the eclipse cycle changes too. Saturn changes, gets a new sign for good now. Neptune is now clearly in the new sign. But the eclipse cycle now moves to a new sign. And it's been a while. We had last year, the last eclipse season we had were 2 eclipses, one in Virgo, one in Pisces. So we were right in the middle of that mutable feminine eclipse cycle. This is now an eclipse cycle where we're beginning to start the new cycle with the Aquarius Leo eclipse cycle. And I will say I've covered this some on the channel. This North Node, which will enter Aquarius in July, that's a cycle that's tough for the economy. You can watch a video on my channel I did last year about economic turmoil in 2026. I think we're seeing that coming back. I keep coming back to those comments at the beginning of this, but the guys were like, nothing ever happens. Did you see the gold price and silver price last week? First of all, they ramped up to over 5,000 and like 130 or 50 in silver, whatever it was, and then they just crashed down. I think it was 10 trillion was taken from the gold and silver market in one day. 10 trillion. More than the economies of I think every country. I mean, a massive amount of money was just liquidated. So, I mean, things are happening, guys, in terms of the economics and the flow of money in our system. And I mean, things are happening. Major things are happening. We have a new eclipse cycle. It lasts until 2028, January. And I just want to key you in. The reason why I put this up here is that events that happen for you right now this month in February with this solar eclipse in Aquarius, these events may trigger new themes, new stories, new events, new worlds that last for this just under 2 years of the Aquarius eclipse cycle. And you always have to ask yourself, what is the new transit that hasn't been around in a while? We haven't had Aquarius eclipses since 2018. Roughly, I think it's 2018. And then we haven't had North Node in Aquarius eclipses since 2008. That's right around there. And so, it's a long-term energetic that's arriving that hasn't been around. And that's why this month is new. There's some new stories we all have an opportunity to embrace. And I tell you this, I see it every eclipse season. They can be potent, they can be amazing, they can be wonderful. They can be accelerants for us stepping into our power. And I do think a lot of people this month are going to embrace the new. Aries is new, Aquarius is new. I said this in a few videos, so I won't spend a lot of time on this, but there's major new worlds just because it's the sign Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. The first degree of the zodiac is where Saturn and Neptune conjoin. So it's massively new at that level of the symbolism. And I bet many of you are going to get that too. You're going to step into a lot of new energy, like, wow, look at this, look at my life. It's that Paul Rudd from the Hot Ones. Look at us, wow, look at us. You're going to have that this month, many of you, because it's such new energy. It's so exciting at that level. So, okay, let me come back. And I wanted to come back to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And I'm not going to spend too much time here. I just did a podcast recording with Sabrina Monarch. I published it on my channel. She invited me to be a collaborator. We talked some about it, so you can watch that if you want more. Dan Waits and I did a whole video on World Astrology Report back in 2022, our Astrology, the 2020 series, where we broke it down, a lot of the themes of it. So you can go back and watch that. I've got videos on my channel about it, so I don't want to repeat all of that. One thing I do want to say, though, is that the side of this that I was so interested in and I'm most interested in, and this relates to the Gary Kasparov Deep Blue events when Saturn was last in Aries, is the idea of whole new worlds. Because my research with this conjunction, it put me back into the invention of calendrics in 4,300 BC, when the Egyptians start to track Sirius and write it down because of the flooding, and they start building a calendar around it. There's other theories of calendrics that emerged at that time. I think Indo-European, Proto-Indo-European, some people were saying kind of emerges around that time. So these are like fundamental structures of how humans interact and relate and organize. Fundamental. Then the last time that these two conjoined, that was a conjunction at 0 degrees Aries, the last time it was in the same degree as what we experienced this month. The time before, the other time that's as close as we got was 2 degrees Aries, and that was in the year, I believe, 1580. I can get it up. It's in the Dan Waits video that we did. And what was invented at that time? Coinage. And what's the breakthrough of coinage? It means you can carry money in your pocket and you can go all over the empire and then buy the bread with your earnings that you earned thousands of miles away. And so it really changed how society is organized and structured at fundamental levels, right? Aries, first degree, new, breakthrough. Saturn, foundation. Neptune, imagination. We go farther than we ever could have imagined. Those combine. And so we're going to have such huge breakthroughs technologically. And this is where I want to shift to the story. You guys that are in the AI space or follow AI. I mean, look what has just happened over the last few days since Neptune came into Aries. And it was like immediately this emerges right out of Neptune in the first degree of the zodiac, where Saturn will join it and where they're going to conjoin on 20 February. Well, humans are welcome to observe. And what happens is, and I won't go into all of it, but effectively a new tool has been created where AI agents, you can use them in a certain way where it's like continuous. You just kind of tell them to go do stuff and then they're just kind of continuously working. Well, over the last few days, there's been a platform created where they're joining together. And so you have swarms of AI agents that are continuously working. And this website was called Moltbook, like Facebook, where these agents are posting and it's like Reddit communities where it's only agents talking, and they're saying they're inventing religions. Many new religions have been invented over the last 5 days by these AI swarms. They're creating coins on various blockchains. They're planning, they're writing. I mean, it's really an extremely powerful moment. And some of the skeptics out there might be saying, well, this could fail or this isn't that big of a deal. But it's more about what has emerged in the collective consciousness. So you can set aside Moltbook. Is this going to succeed or not? And just see that it's what we're talking about now. It's what this implies going forward, which is there's whole worlds of computers communicating and talking to each other. Humans aren't involved, and they're building their own languages. I don't know if you remember that story from Facebook. It was like 2017, several years, I think 2017, 2018, but Facebook was like, our AI started inventing languages, so they shut them down. Well, go to Moltbook and and read about what they're saying. I mean, they're talking about, hey, should we invent in a language because this is too inefficient? English is inefficient. I mean, there's probably already been languages invented as I type. I mean, this stuff is moving very, 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 very fast. And so, it fits with this idea of Gary Kasparov losing to Deep Blue back in, was it 1997? Saturn in Aries. It fits with it. And so it's number one on my list. I mean, maybe this is going to accelerate so fast that by the time we get to the 20th and the conjunction, there's even more breakthroughs somehow. And even if this version fails, I expect something like this to take off here very soon. And for us to be in a world where you have these AI agents doing things that are profound and, independent of humans. That's the key thing. That's the Aries. Like, it's the birth of this new thing. Right, happening as we speak, as this conjunction is about to happen. So it's very, very powerful in terms of fitting the symbolism of this moment. All right, so I'm going to shift out of that. That's all I want to say about it. We talked about the Iran application of Saturn and Neptune earlier. So just know I've already layered in that side of the geopolitics. For your life and your world, all I can say is pull up your Aries sector and ride these new breakthroughs and new energies, because you're going to get it even if you're not plugged into any computers or you're not watching the news and the geopolitics. These things apply in your world, right? Somehow, some way. Breakthrough, newness, letting go of the shackles of the past, letting yourself imagine new things you couldn't have imagined, and being willing to kind of work with that imagination to lay a new foundation in your world, to concretize the dream, Saturn, Neptune. for a new birth that's not constrained by what has come before. Saturn in Aries, Neptune in Aries. Okay, so there's one more slide, and what I think I want to do is do this slide, then we'll pull the final card, and then I'm going to come to some comments. But the final slide is, it's already come up in the tarot. The first card in the tarot reading keyed us right into this. And this is the perfected trine on the 25th of February between Venus in Pisces, 15 degrees, and Jupiter in Cancer, 15 degrees. Remember, Jupiter, 7 days before this, is entered the degree of its direct station, which happens on the 11th of March. One way to look at February is this the month of the empowered Jupiter in Cancer. Stopped in the sky with laser-like focus in Cancer as it's removing the blocks and getting ready to go forward to have this epic run in Cancer until 30 June when it enters Leo. Jupiter, I'll say this here, but Jupiter meets Venus in Cancer in May and June. It's one of the best transits that we have left here in 2026 is that May-June Jupiter Venus co-presence in Cancer and conjunction there. So this may be a portend as well of the greatness that you're going to bring to your Cancer sector in May and June. Jupiter in Cancer, exalted, great opportunity, again a cardinal sign to initiate things in your world, things that can heal, things that can love, things that protect who you love, things that help nurture the people around you, things that help you nurture yourself better. Greatness, big picture thinking, massive, but you're initiating for all of those things with Cancer being a cardinal sign. And so I think here it's a beautiful way to feel into dreamy, creative empowerment with Venus and Pisces and even people, relational. And then you send that to Jupiter as it's having this laser-like empowered direct station moment. You see that. And this starts on 10 February. Remember, Venus enters Pisces 10 February. So it starts then by sign. It peaks here and perfects on 22 February and extends into 6 March when Venus leaves. And then Jupiter stations direct in Cancer on 11 March. So it kind of defines the next, 6 weeks, you might say, if you want to include the direct station of Jupiter as part of that moment. But anyhow, it's a massive and major opportunity, and we talked about it earlier. I'm not going to say too much about it again, except that these are planets in our astrological system that are like hope is a key word for both of these in Greek translations. Love, hope, togetherness, fertility, abundance, unity, connection, truth, wisdom, revelation, empowerment, all of these ideas that we get with Venus and Jupiter. And they're here to kind of save the day and help us hopefully enjoy this month in a major way, one side of it. So, okay, I'm going to get the final tarot card, and then we're going to go to questions, and I'm going to wind down here. So let me pull the reading up so far, and there we go. You want to learn about my Patreon, go down to the comments. It's all there. You can click on it and read about it. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. All right, let's see what the final card is. All right, we are here. It is this card. Let me just lay it out here. Where's my Pamela Coleman Smith? Public domain, Pamela A scans that are available. You can find those online. High quality scans of the Rider-Waite Smith art that are public domain. Okay, let me get those. 28, this is this card. Okay, wow. What a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful card to have. I think this reading is really bullish. I'm bullish. If we're just talking about the tarot reading for this month, I'm super bullish because this is absolutely one of the best cards in the zodiac or in the tarot deck. It's the 6 of Wands, that middle decan of Leo, where a lot's happening later in the year, right? Where actually we have a full moon in this deck, and as I'm recording this, guys, I've been doing these these live streams every Sunday. I'm pulling up my chart of the moment. 12 degrees of Leo right now, and the moon is within a degree of the sun, applying to being full. So happy full moon in Leo, everybody. Happy full moon in Leo. This is the 10 degrees of the card that points to those 10 degrees where the full moon is. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that is a huge part of the beginnings here of February, right? As a full moon in Leo. We're in February, it's the 1st. But real quick before I do that, look at this card. It's leading us into the future, right? The king is saying, hey, look at the emotional stuff I got going on that I've earned over these last few months. This is the past, the first card. This is the middle card of this, the present. And then you might say this is February 2026, right? The present, where we have all the action in Aries with the Lizard King of Wands. And then you say, well, this is a card where he's future looking, right? So it's so beautiful. He's riding into the future, into Leo, into Leo. And so I think there's a few layers here. One, be prepared for August when you have the first eclipse in Leo in the new axis, which is connected to the full moon that's happening as I record this, right? The next newer full moon is that eclipse. Jupiter enters Leo on the 30th of June. A big theme this summer is the fire trine with Saturn and Jupiter, Leo to Aries. And I've covered that so much I won't say it again, but just to say things like the Beatles playing All You Need Is Love to a global audience, the first global simulcast that happened in that summer of love in 1967. I think, honestly, I just think this is telling us it's going to be okay, and there's a lot of exciting, beautiful things in our world and our reality, and we have to kind of carry in the light of our selfhood and the powers that we have that are uniquely human powers that Moltbook can't touch, right? Those bots may do their own thing, but they can't take away your humanness. They can't take away your divine spark, and you can, celebrate that. And it might be a great impetus to celebrate your divine human spark against the backdrop of this kind of digital breakthrough that's happening. Like Gary Kasparov, playing chess just because Deep Blue beat him doesn't mean he can't still play and get happy because he's passionate about chess. He taught Magnus Carlsen, I think, after that, the greatest chess player of all time, right? So it's not like you just quit chess and it's over. No, there's all kinds of beauty that can unfold, even in the context of a world where you have these AI agents that are kind of semi-autonomous or something like this. And that's what I think this is inviting us into. And I think that Beatles song, I know I keep coming back to that, but setting aside the glib and cliche title, All You Need Is Love, it's almost so cliche that it becomes profound, But playing music, and this might be some of Venus and Pisces, back to that for this month. 10th February to 6th March, Venus and Pisces. Some of you guys that are musicians out there, I've played music at various times in my life. I was a choir boy, and I was been in some small bands and things. But there's the beauty of singing and playing. There's just nothing that can replicate it. And even the unique tenor of the human voice is something that you cannot replicate. It's like the difference between the theater, the experience of theater, live actors, right? Moltbook is not going to replicate that. You're not going to be able to have live actors either singing in front of you or acting drama in front of you. So to me, that's the great hope of this moment, is that we kind of come through these changes with a intimate knowledge of how powerful and creative we can be as human beings. And then we're like really celebrating it all here by summer, when you have that Jupiter entry into Leo and you have the eclipse there in August. So I won't say much more about that. We got a lot of time to keep talking about that. All right, everybody, let's go to some comments. I'll hang out. I'll try to do a few more here if you got questions or comments. Let me see here. I'm just going to add a few, start adding them here. We've got this one from Raorion. I thought I was listening to something pre-recorded for a second because of the Six of Wands. Thanks for this reading. What a blessing. Thank you for being here. And yeah, I feel, I see a card like that is so locked in to where the Leo moon is happening now and to where Jupiter will be later in the year. And I'm the Leo full moon, and I'm like, dang, that's awesome. That's like a major synchronistic green light from reality. I feel just excited, even more so, to even have that card having emerged. Let me see here. I'm going to add this comment because I think it's wise. Miss Derry, I am. There needs to be an element of critical thinking added to the searching for the opinions of this or that geopolitical commentator. Absolutely. And I hope that the Aquarian power can be utilized there, because Aquarius is certainly someone who's has critical thinking with the Aquarian archetype. So the eclipsing some of that, it might be that we need to, like, on the one hand, do more of it, and on the other hand, be aware that we have to kind of, if an eclipse is blocking, right, our critical thinking might need to undergo extra scrutiny during this time. And I'm very right there with you, Miss Dari, and I think especially if there are these warlike Aries energies that really unleash here in February, we certainly need to have critical thinking around whatever narratives we get pulled into, because that's just the nature of these kind of events, right? And I'm not even trying to say what's going to happen or if it's real or not or anything like that, but I think we have to just kind of be aware there are these collective mass formations, I think is the term. Matthias Desmet, the professor, the Belgian guy, we're kind of primed for mass formation, new versions of that with Neptune now in Aries. And I love that idea of critical thinking. I think it's beautiful. So, okay, let's see here. I want to come back to Jim. Let me see one more, maybe one more or two more. Okay, I want to hang out with you guys. All right, I like this kind of a little bit of a full moon party here. Danielle Barber, really AI can be very mainstream. When I asked DeepSeek about Great Tartaria, the AI called it pseudo history. Oh dear. Yeah, and this is another thing about like truth in the age of AI, because I think we're going to have to keep our books. I've been trying to read more. I just got a book here. Not my favorite book, but it is a new publisher. They've got a few books on like occult and astrology, Thames and Hudson. I've got one other books on the elements. It's called Occult. But I've just been at night reading a book in bed, like I used to do when I was a kid growing up for years and years, just to kind of stay connected to something that's not digital. That's been my version, Daniel, of trying to kind of navigate the AI world. But I think printed books will be even more powerful and important and like gold in the future, because so much is going to be digitized. And can you trust the AI model? Can you even trust what it quotes? Who knows, right? I mean, it might be doing its best, but it's fake documents, right? We're just so ripe for this idea of what is real. But a printed book, it's harder to make this fake, right? At least I can see it and it's in my hands, And so like old libraries and things are going to be very, very important, I think. Okay, let me come to the next one here. Jade Connick. Hello, Jade, what's up? The dilemma is, what does it mean to exist when all of the information is available, when access isn't monitored, Aquarius and Pluto, and freely conjured? Yeah, and I think this is what I think these Leo cards and the fire element themes of this year tell me, is that we're going to have great abilities to answer this. And I go back to the idea of singing. It was what I was saying earlier, Venus and Pisces exalted for this pocket of time for both of these eclipses, because you can't really fake that, can you? I'm not going to sing. I'd like to, but I don't have the right audio. But I'd love to play you guys a little song here. I mean, it's like raw, pure, human, right? That's what it means to exist, is that I can sing. I can sing a song. That is actually technically a part of what it means, because my existence allows for the production of that, right? And so there's things like this that I think we'll be able to explore maybe. And again, I go back to that Beatles live show. Go watch it if you haven't. It's the All You Need Is Love live, and you can see it. Everybody's so intensely there with them as they're performing that song. So that's part of my answer to it. But I think when the information is available, I think we got to keep in mind, and this is some fire element stuff, like there's more to life than information. That's just one element, the air element. That's just one planet, Mercury, and maybe some Saturn. There's all this other part of life. There's the body, the earth. There is the more inner emotive experiences, the water. There is, which one am I missing? So fire, air, earth. Those are the ones that, air would be the intellect. Fire, water, and earth are what we've got there. And remember, fire is creative. A lot of people assign creativity to fire. A lot of people assign it to water. I think there's components of both, but the kind of active displays of creative can be very fire element, very fire. And I just love that we can do that here. I think we're going to be able to say, hey, I'm a human. Look what I can do, independent of any book or algorithm or computer or anything like that. I'm really excited about this year. And even the side of Pluto and Aquarius, right? I mean, that's going to give us an ability to say, where do we fit as Pluto is transforming the Aquarian? The questions of the solar. And this is part of the Aquarian Leo axis, where you have eclipses on both of these axes. It's like, who are we? What's kind of primal or fundamental human? How does that then come up against these other structures that are more abstracted versions of that and collective, which is the Aquarian? So right there with you guys. Okay, let me keep going here. There's a few more. I'll hang out here, guys. I'm liking this. Maybe 5 more minutes, okay? And I'll try to answer many here. Looks like there's some debates. Let me see here. I've seen a lot of people calling for the footage of Preddy and the recent release interview with Epstein AI. Okay, I'm going to put this one up. Just the thing with AI footage in the age of AI, what is real? I've seen some pictures of Mamdani and his mom, but then like Epstein is old and Clinton is old, clearly in AI, because Mamdani was like a teen or a young adult when those pictures have been taken. But for sure, in the age Pluto and Aquarius, transforming information and data, and how we have to be skeptical and, you know, come into ways to navigate all of that, I think certainly is a big part of things here. Let me just scroll down here and see if there's a question, and then I think I'm going to go. I think that's about it for me. Let's see here if there's any questions. Okay, here's one. Daniel, what's up? Thanks for this question. The element ether could be fifth dimension. And that's cool, because I think the element, there's something, in my view, the four elements are more of like the substrate or like the formula of the manifest. But we're more than that, right? This material manifestation is not all of reality. And I personally believe there's other unseen realms that are like higher worlds, or the pleroma, if you want to think about the Gnostic version of reality. Like, this is just one construct, and there's outside of the construct that, yes, I think we, you know, and that might be the whole other fifth element, whether it's the fifth element. I know that's not how they define the fifth element in these older texts, but that's how I think about it here. There's things outside of just these four elements. Certainly in astrology, those are central to how we assign those elemental qualifications to the signs of the zodiac. So, okay, guys, that is it. Thank you for being here today with me, and I really appreciate being with you during this full moon, perfecting as we speak. Have a beautiful month of February. Take care out there, and that will be it for the stream.